We are back on Morning Line on this Wednesday. This is John Harris. He's with the Tennessee Firearms Association, talking the issue in the aftermath. And it's always good of you to come on when this is a topic of discussion. You know, guns and mass shootings and how to address this and the mental health component and all of that. We continue to discuss it. You bring up good points. I do. The public does. Lawmakers trying to look at it. But I'll tell you what, folks. It ain't getting any better right now. It just isn't. So something, what it is, that's open to debate, of course. But what we're doing now is not working. It's the point almost, John, where mass shootings are no longer, unique. They're commonplace. They happen, and you're just like, okay. I hate to say it. Now, of course, we report it. But the reaction to the El Paso shooting, where 20 people were slaughtered, was big initially the day it happened, but nothing compared to, when you go back a couple of years, something like that had happened, it would have been national news for weeks. Now it happens, it's next news cycle, it's gone.
That's true. And if you look at 9/11, for example, there was a huge emotional response in the country.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
And what we see now after El Paso and Sandy Hook and the other shootings is the political polarization kicks in so fast, the emotional catharsis doesn't even have a real opportunity to happen.
Yeah. I think that's true too. Right off the bat, immediately when something this happens, instead of addressing the emotional part of it and sympathizing, you hear folks either calling for gun control, or you hear others saying, "Oh, we're going to start hearing from the gun control people. We need more." Whatever. They're hitting it politically right off the bat after it on both sides. Instead of let's just sit back and take a look at what happened to these poor people,
right,
and address this.
No, it's like the parties have rapid deployment teams. They just want to roll it out and see what political gain we can make.
You know what? I hadn't thought of that, but I think you're exactly right, and that plays a big part of this. Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning. Hi, Joe.
Good morning, Nick and John.
Morning, Joe.
I want to address something that you were saying earlier in the program. The last time I checked, the Tennessee Firearms Association and the NRA wasn't on the same page on a lot of stuff. So I don't like to connect them two together. But that being said, next to 9/11, the biggest mass killing in the United States was Timothy McVeigh when he blew up the federal building. And in both of these cases, there was several warnings before these took place that something was amiss. And nobody did anything about it till after the fact. And in one of these mass shootings, one of these people that did that's mother called in several weeks before and told authorities that their son had a gun and that he shouldn't have a gun, so they knew he had problems. So a lot of this stuff is people knows these people. They get on social media and tell what they're going to do and what they're thinking, and then they go out and do it. So prevention is worth a pound of cure. I mean, we're real good at, after the fact, trying to address what the problem is, but a lot of the problem is nobody talks about these people that's got problems for whatever reason, whether it's anti-Semitic or whatever. I mean, you got one here that just happened here in Memphis, where some fool down there was going to shoot up a church. So if they could get a little background, they found out this guy had some kind of a hatred in mind before he did this. So I don't know the answer. I'm not a future predictor, but we need to do more to try to prevent rather than come along after the fact and complain about what's going on.
I completely agree. And we're starting to see this. I don't know what it's taken, but really over the last couple of days, there have been 3 or 4 reports of planned shootings that have been foiled because these people, one way or the other, online or telling someone. And he's right. In one of those, the mother actually reported her son worried about it. And I mean, law enforcement now is so quick to respond as they should be. And when they don't, in some of these cases, they're going to be held accountable. You get word of a threat and they don't respond and something happens, they need to be held accountable. And I don't care how busy you are. You get and the truth is they do respond.
They will respond. You know, we don't know, for example, on the incident where the mom called in, I think that was Dayton.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And you know, what I understand, and it's secondhand from news reports, is that she called the police. She said basically, I don't think my son should have access to this kind of weapon. He's not right. He's got some stuff wrong with him. What can I do to take it away from him or have it taken away? They asked her how old he was. He was over 21. The response was, well, nothing. But they didn't apparently ask, why do you think he's a danger to himself or others? Which would have taken you down the path of an emergency committal, potentially.
In which case, then you can prohibit them from getting the weapons.
Well, you get them off the street.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. You keep them from getting to that access. It's interesting, another story I reported on is yesterday in Florida, they arrested this teenager, a 15-year-old, who had been online. I don't know if you saw that. What was interesting is there was police body cam video, and the mother was there as they came to arrest the 15-year-old. And she's like, well, he's just a little boy, and he was joking about this. And, you know, obviously she didn't like seeing her son being cuffed, but the officer says, look, how do we know that he's not someone? We don't know. We see these threats and we respond. And, you know, this kid may well have been kidding. These days, if you're 15 and you're making threats, you're old enough to know better. And if you make a threat thinking you're going to be funny, you're going to pay the price. And I have no problem with it.
And see, what we're missing right now, and is not well defined as part of that story, or even more generally in Tennessee, for example, is if something like that happens, what standards, what due process protections are there that police have to follow, like with the emergency committals, to investigate maybe a social media threat or statement, but not overreact if it was unwarranted.
Right, and it's hard. That's tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very tricky. Because it essentially, particularly with mental health components, calls upon somebody, law enforcement, medical professionals, and it probably ought to be medical professionals ultimately, you know, making the assessment as to whether or not they're a legitimate immediate threat of harm or risk, whether they are legitimately in need of mental health restrictions because they pose a threat, as opposed to someone who's just depressed.
Yeah. Let's go to Charlie next. Charlie, good morning. Hi, Charlie.
Hey, Nick. Good morning. How you doing, bud?
Good. What's on your mind?
Hey, listen, I got two questions for you. First question is this. Does Tennessee have a stand your ground law to where, say, like, if me or you, Nick, get into an argument over a parking spot and you feel that I'm being aggressive to you, do you have the right to protect yourself? And two, what would be the legal outcome to that?
Okay, yeah, the stand your ground, of course, out of Florida and what happened. Now we all have. I don't know what the law is, but I know that if I feel like my life is in danger, whether I'm at home or on the street or something, I have a right to defend myself, and we're going to play it out. Now we'll see. They'll have to look at how it went down. You mentioned the story I reported today about the guy who was attacked in the drive-through window of a Taco Bell by a panhandler, and he ends up defending himself by cutting his fingers. Both of the people called the police, the panhandler and he. Cops decided it was self-defense. No citations.
Let it go. Yeah.
So is there a stand your ground law, or maybe you can define it? How would that, whenever that came out, and I remember reading the definition, I was like, what do you mean stand your ground? I mean, obviously everyone has a right to defend themselves. Why do we need a stand your ground law?
Well, the terminology stand your ground is sort of like calling all copiers a Xerox machine. Okay? It's a generic term for a classification of statutes that are essentially self-defense laws. Now, originally in the early 80s, I believe, the Tennessee Supreme Court said in a case called Kennemore that in Tennessee you have a right to defend yourself, but if you have a safe mechanism of retreat to run away, to escape the threat, you have to do that before you can use deadly force. That was the law for a period of time. It created a huge problem in the court systems in cases like the Taco Bell, because
they'd say he could have hit the gas and just pulled away.
Yeah,
but he was waiting for his breakfast burrito.
They devolved into arguments about whether or not there was a safe avenue of retreat. So in 1989, the Tennessee General Assembly passed in Tennessee what's called the Self-Defense Act that we currently operate under. Sometimes it's called the True Man Rule, sometimes it's called Stand Your Ground, but essentially here's what it says, and it's Tennessee Code annotated 3911-611 if you want to look it up. But it basically says, if you're in a situation where there is an aggression being made towards you and you're in imminent fear of death or serious bodily harm from a threat that actually exists, so it can't be a mental delusion,
Okay.
that you have no duty in Tennessee to retreat, you can use deadly force, and it eliminated all that but what if stuff in the courtroom.
Okay.
There's also an extension of it that says if you're in certain places, what we call the castle doctrine, if you're in your home, your car, a hotel room, and someone feloniously enters that protected space, you're presumed to be in imminent fear of death or serious bodily injury, and you can use deadly force.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we do have it. I don't like the stand your ground terminology because I think it gives the wrong impression.
Yeah, and is Florida's a little different than ours in that
how
way that
Florida-
allows more leeway to?
Florida's where Florida is, I think, in some respects better than ours, is there's an affirmative duty in Florida on the government, law enforcement, to investigate whether it was in fact self-defense before they can charge the person. Okay, like the Trayvon Martin case.
Right.
In Tennessee, there's no affirmative duty for law enforcement, like in the Taco Bell case, to even consider whether it was self-defense. Now they can.
Oh, there is? Okay, because
there's
in
no
this case they
affirmative-
did.
yeah.
I mean, they looked at it. I would think it's common sense. Cop goes out there and gets the basics, and if it turns out that some guy was defending himself against an attack and they can confirm it or see it on video, it's a no-brainer.
Well, that's true, and that's the way it ought to be. But the downfall is you might have you might be the person defending yourself, and you divorce the cop's sister.
Oh, right. And so you never know. He has a bone axe to grind with you. I see what you're
He
saying.
doesn't necessarily have to take a serious look at is it self-defense.
Where in Florida you do. And by the way, with regard to looking, I know they changed the law. I know myself, if I was in a situation like fearing for my safety, I would definitely look for an escape before I chose to shoot and kill someone if I could avoid that.
Oh, I think absolutely.
I think most people would. But again, you just never know, and sometimes you have no choice, and you don't think that way, and you have to do it. Listen, we'll take a break. When we come back, more of your calls, more of our conversation with John Harris with the Tennessee Firearms Association. Stay with us.